we missed a lot of good underground bands.
Yep.
Because we didn't have the internet like we have today.
Yep.
Like we had some things, we could dial some things up or whatever, but you just didn't have the access like you have now. The streaming, the instant type it and have it.
Yep.
Like we had to wait till somebody bought it, took a chance on it, because you weren't hearing any of that on the radio at all, period.
Yep.
You didn't have podcasts or streaming, so you really were just kind of like either go take a chance on it, spend the $20, or wait till somebody else like recommends it to you, then maybe.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Metal Maniacs podcast. I'm your host, Jay Ingersoll, and I'm here with a man that commits the ultimate sin.
Your boy Mod.
What's up, buddy?
What's good? It's been a while.
Dude, it has been a while.
A couple weeks.
Yeah, a couple weeks.
Yeah,
got the cancellation, hit with a cancellation last Sunday, so that was kind of sad.
Yeah.
R.I.P. Ozzy.
Yo, it's been that long.
Yep.
Ozzy's passed.
Yep.
God, that's sad.
We kind of got to interject that in there. It would be mandatory to say R.I.P. Ozzy. Probably see some content coming along the pipeline from us just because of Ozzy is badass. I've been listening to a lot of Ozzy just because of that, and I'm just like, there's so much good stuff here, man. It's so good. So we'll come down with some of that, but R.I.P. Ozzy.
Yeah, he's been on the satellite. You almost can't escape it. Been out to a show since then, and it was everything between songs was like Ozzy.
Yep.
What bands are setting up is just strictly Ozzy and Black Sabbath. So it's been sad, but it's also been refreshing to kind of hear like all of the body of work. There's a reason why we're all sad. Obviously, he was a huge impact on metal music, from the top down.
Yep.
Kind of starts with Ozzy and Iommi and Black Sabbath. Like
exactly.
Dude. There were things before that, but yeah, we'll be talking more about Ozzy. I'm sure we'll go over the catalog and the best songs and classic moments, even on a stage or off a stage. There's lots to talk about.
Yeah, definitely. Revisiting some of that too. Like I said, I was like, man, some of these songs that were just kind of fly under the radar are actually some of the bangers. Like Ultimate Sin, that whole record, that's a heavy record. That's a good record, man. So it made me want to listen to some Ozzy, and I forgot about some gems. Even Osmosis, I think, is an underrated one too. Like the one that came out when we were in high school.
Yeah. Perry Mason on that one.
But yeah, we'll get back to that. We're not a news podcast, so we're not really on top of the game, but we'll give our due to Ozzy for sure.
Yeah, they're already hearing this several weeks after he's passed. Then we'll put out content several weeks later after that. That'll be reflecting that, but it's got to be done.
But I kind of like that too, because then it makes it longer than just the 24-hour news cycle as well, so we kind of stretch it out a little bit and make it relevant for longer.
Of all news stories, passing of Ozzy's not gonna like disappear. Like we're gonna celebrate Ozzy almost daily now for the rest of our lives.
Yeah,
that's gonna be pretty evident in the way that it's carried on since he's passed away already.
The one thing I wanted to bring up real fast before we move on is it's kind of crazy because man needs purpose.
Yeah.
And when you play your last show, and I know he has a family and he has other purpose in this world, but it's wild that he played that last show and then was like, my purpose is gone because I play no more shows. I'm not going to be on stage. I'm no longer the Prince of Darkness. I'm just Ozzy, the guy. Yeah. And it's just kind of wild. Like, I know he was in bad health and he was hanging on and they had to get him out there, but it's just like, as soon as the purpose goes away, the man dies. And that's just bigger than Ozzy even, and that's wild to me. So
yeah, I thought the same thing. I thought, I watched some of the performance. He's not in the best health. We can see that. And then when it's all said and done, like I thought maybe we had 5 or 10 more years of Ozzy just kind of carrying on and maybe slowly make his exit from this mortal coil. But sure enough, like 3 weeks of like nothing to look forward to. You got the kids. I don't know if they have grandchildren or not, but suffice to say that he's led a very successful life, family, he's seen it all. 3 weeks is enough time after the last show to make a tour of goodbyes, to friends, to the real closer inner circle. Like you do the show, you meet all the rock stars you ever influenced, shake everybody's hand, sign pictures, autographs, all of that. And then 3 more weeks of just the really close friends and family. And then you're buried on the property out back. Didn't waste any time. Yeah. Didn't waste a second. That man's life was special.
Yep.
Special.
capacity full, man,
Yeah.
all the way. He rode that bitch all the way to the end. So
Yeah, love it.
praise him, man.
Yeah,
praise him for sure.
Lots
So.
of love for the Oz, man.
And then real quick, before we jump into this, because we always kind of talk about other
Mm-hmm.
things for the first 10 minutes or so. Real quick, we went out to the show the other night, the Summer Slaughter. That was fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the Hate
That
Breed
was
show.
cool. You kind of made a last-minute entrance,
Man.
but hey,
I was gassed.
free show, dude. Free
Yeah.
show. You know, that was pretty cool. I had a great time.
Yeah, it was fun. God.
I have some opinions about some things, but I won't bring them up here. I will say Gridiron fucking fucks.
Yeah.
Those guys rule hard.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't normally kind of be into the rappy rap, and I listened to the album, the one they put out this year, and I liked it.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't normally be into that kind of rap, but the band is so damn good that it almost just trumps. You could have any guy saying anything on the vocals, and it wouldn't matter. That's how sweet that band is, to me. They were heavy, they were groovy, they were sick. And I like the dude's swagger and his attitude anyway, the singer. So, it's like a Biohazard type, 2025.
Something about the moxie or, just the swagger on stage, that band had me reeled in immediately. And that's a style of music too that I could really miss. I could just distance myself from that a lot, but they were so tight. Like they just were about their business. And I agree with you. I might not normally listen to like a rap metal type, but he had great flow. He had great command of the stage and the microphone. The whole band did. They were just dialed in. And it just kind of goes to like believe in what you do mentality, because who cares what anybody else is doing or you compared to anybody else at all. But if you go out there and do your thing really well, you will make the fans. If you really believe in what you're doing, you will convince somebody. They will see it.
Yep.
And I saw it with Gridiron on stage. Never heard of these guys. Just kind of here to got a free ticket.
Yeah.
Just gonna experience it. Would have the FOMO. If I didn't go, I'd be, like, what did I miss? How was it? I still haven't seen Hatebreed. Got to check that box. That was a good show. Really great performance by Hatebreed. But Gridiron just won me over. Yeah. And Gore was great too. I really liked Gore. Didn't really fit the bill. Metalcore, big choruses, a lot of female vocals. It's not as heavy. It was misplaced. A good opportunity for them to get out in front of some fans and some people, but I loved Gore's set. But Gridiron just had me. They just so strong on stage. I just made an instant fan out of me, and I just the whole time it's just one of those things where when a band's got me, I'll just keep making that grumpy face, and I just get more and more grumpy with it. Like, what's wrong with you? Nothing. I love this. Yeah. So Gridiron had me. And Hatebreed, Jamie Jost is up there. He's just the guy must love life because he smiled the whole time. He's out there, he's yelling at you, but he's just smiling like he loves his job. Yeah. He kind of looks like a heavy metal cheerleader up there, no diss, but he's just up there jumping and spinning, and he's having a grand old time. And I'm like, this motherfucker right here, he loves his job.
Yep.
So going out to see a Hatebreed performance, still worth the dollar. Still worth the bang. You get your bang for your buck there.
I'll say with Gore, just a comment. One, I feel like they kind of need a pickle lane. You either kind of need to be majority heavy and then some soft stuff. The other thing, and it goes to your point that you just said about Gridiron, be about your shit. Yeah. Don't come out and be like, I hope you like this, or I hope we're not too light, or here's a ballad. Just do your thing. Yeah. Because when you start saying those things, then people start getting a weird idea in their head or this preconceived notion of what you might be like when you start trying to preface your performance. Yeah. Fuck that. Be you. Yeah, we're out of place. You invited us on this tour. Yeah. You got a ticket. Who fucking cares? This is us. Yeah. We're Gore, and this is what we do. Yeah. And that was the only thing that kind of turned me off. She was an excellent singer. Yeah. They put on a great performance. I like their band.
Yeah, they're good.
But that kind of gets me at that level at a professional. It's different if you're at a local show and somebody's saying something like that, because you could tell they're a newer band, but just leave all of that behind. Just do you and shut up. Like, don't give us all that preconceived.
The weird thing about a comment like that is it's not intentionally divisive, but that's the way it plays out at the end, because you're insinuating that you're not heavy enough for the people that just got to have it heavy. No, you were. You already established that when you decided to become a band, kind of like you're heavy. Yeah. You get to the heavy moments. If they can't appreciate that, then who cares? You're not for everyone. But the other thing is it makes the rest of us who are standing there enjoying your music feeling like, oh, I guess I don't like the heaviest stuff. I like the weak stuff, guys.
Right.
So now the people who like your band, and we know you're not the heaviest band on the bill, that's fine.
Yeah.
Own it. Like, that's just do your set. Like, that's all. I don't want 5 bands to sound the same. I appreciate a band like Gore in the middle of an all hardcore evening because I got a little something that's more for me. I walked right up. I knew what I was in for. I knew I was going to get a metalcore band with choruses and songwriting, some clean verses and some screams and some breakdowns. I knew what I was in for. I'm familiar with the band. So I was totally fine with it. But when you make that comment, it's like, oh, there goes 20 people to the bar.
Right.
You know, here comes the ballad. I'm out. Just play the song.
Yeah, that's what
It's
I'm
fine.
saying.
Like,
Exactly.
I mean, hey, look, I'm not.
And their heavy stuff was heavy.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
We spitball. We have these opinions and these takes. Whenever, if they ever heard this, just keep doing your thing. It's like,
Yeah.
I absolutely love the band. It's just one of those things where you never want to. I don't think, maybe if you're big, super huge, you can have like the self-deprecating sense of humor on stage because you already packed the house.
Yeah.
But when you are literally brand new, nobody's really heard of you, and you're just kind of getting your foot in the door, just own it.
Yeah.
Like, just champion that shit all the time.
And that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, you don't say anything. Just play your stuff.
Yeah.
Say thanks for liking it. If you don't, who cares? Because you're not for everybody. You'll never
Yeah.
be. Your band will never be. So
Yeah.
don't worry about that. Just do your thing and say, this is us. This is
Yeah.
Gore. Great performance, though. Still good band.
Yeah.
I like those guys. When they got heavy, they got heavy.
Yeah.
Even their ballad stuff is cool to me. So
Yeah.
I didn't have nothing wrong. All in all, the mixed bill kind of with like different bands, I thought it was a good show, man.
Yeah.
All in all, it was cool.
It
So
was nice to get out to another vacation. So I think the last time we talked, I was talking about Upheaval, and then I went on vacation,
Yeah.
and then I came back and I got another free ticket.
Yeah.
Excuse me, but yeah, just concerts and vacations, and finally here to talk some metal today.
Yep. So this episode should be called "Pull My Metal Card Now"
Oh yeah,
because we are revisiting some old school death metal,
Mhm.
and we've talked a lot about death metal on the show. I would
Ad
say,
nauseam.
yeah, I would say if anything, our tastes have changed over the years, but we grew up just the death metal guys, and a lot of that still finds me. I would still say just overall, I'm a death metal guy. I'm not a metalcore guy. I'm not a deathcore guy. I'm a death metal guy.
yeah,
So we're gonna revisit some old school death metal, but we're gonna focus on not the normies we always talk about, because you've heard us talk ad nauseum about death, Morbid Angel, Obituary, At the Gates, In
Deicide.
Flames, Deicide.
Cannibal Corpse.
Yeah, we've touched on some Cannibal. We haven't dove deep on them, but yeah, we've definitely, anytime you mention death metal, you cannot not say their name. But
yeah, we mentioned Cannibal Corpse plenty. We just haven't done the deep dive that maybe they deserve, and out of respect for the name and how long they've been doing it. But they're the band.
Yeah.
They're the band.
Yeah.
Like, they're death metal.
the guys, for sure. So we're gonna touch on some. The way I approached this was some bands that I've listened to and I've enjoyed through the years, and then I wanted to dive a little deeper in them that might not be your typical household old school death metal names. And I feel like when we were talking a little bit last night to preface the episode, I feel like this might even turn into a series because there's so much here. There's a lot even more with these bands we'll talk about today. We could even dive in deeper to their catalogs fully because I know you discovered some gems as we were talking. I did as well. So just trying to get a punch hole in my metal card today and realize that I wasn't the poser and just like death, and that's it, Carcass and stuff.
So for me, the genesis, this idea kind of comes from my tape collection. I was thinking about, I saw an old tape and I'm like, I wonder where some of these other tapes are, combined with like some random internet articles, but I wanted to explore my own, old death metal collection. And I was like, well, I can only like speak to like what I've heard. So I went through my collection. I grabbed all the old stuff. Some was in the next room, started ripping it onto the computer, dial it up on YouTube, whatever. And then I thought, well, let's just try to unearth as many old school death metal gems as we can. So we'll go back in time. I listened to what I owned, revisited it. Then I listened to some names that were just like at the top. You had to know these bands in order to say the words old school death metal.
Mm-hmm.
And so you sent me a list of bands, and I listened to what I would consider their most popular work, maybe their best work, but that's obviously always an opinion between old school fans and the diehards, and know the first album, know their second album. Well, I'm going to speak to 5 albums that I revisited, kind of in some order, maybe somewhat arbitrary, and then I'll touch on the bands that you sent me, because I listened to some of that work and I was blown away. Like like some top tier 10 out of 10 albums that you gotta have, must listen, should own.
Yep.
That sort of thing. And that's what the show is basically evolved to. Is it's going to be in broad old school death metal revisited. We're just going to go back in time on the Wayback Machine and listen to some old school death metal and tell the kids that are of the 21st century, birth date doesn't start with a 19.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, here's some good stuff back here,
Right.
like that we're gonna talk about today. And I think a lot of our listeners are gonna appreciate just a strict focus on the death metal.
Yep.
You know, we're not gonna get into the metalcore or
None of that.
or the deathcore.
Yep.
You know, we're gonna give you none of the new metal. We're gonna give you death metal today, old school death metal.
Well, so I approach this a little different. I just have 5 bands I'm going to speak on,
Yeah.
and I'll just brief over their
catalogs.
and then I'll point out some highlights and some fun
Yeah.
facts or whatever. And
I will declare maybe one of their best albums
Yep.
for you, and
Yep.
you can just talk about their catalog. That's
Yep.
cool.
because I didn't deep dive. I had so much to go through as I was going through these because I wanted to pick some that I wasn't completely familiar with
Yeah,
as
same,
well, you
same.
know, because even the ones that you sent that we'll talk about were all ones I remember. Some I knew more than others, but they were all, when you sent me those names, I knew what tapes you had because we listened to those so many times.
Mhm.
So when you said, even though we won't talk about Pungent Stench today, but that was one you said,
Yeah.
I knew it was Been Caught Buttering because I remember the cover, and that was the one that we always used to jam.
Yeah.
So I listened to some of that
Yep.
and kind of dialed up some facts about Pungent Stench. So I got some stuff in my pocket here, and
Okay.
since you're the guest of honor, as always, my friend, and we've been off a few weeks, I'm going to let you dive in first on the first band album you want to bring up here for the old school death metal.
Yeah, this
episode.
one I'm going to shout out to our mutual friend Adam Eklund. I remember I told him I listened to this album and I just didn't connect with it, and he gave me like the screeching eagle. Like, he was just so taken aback by. Yeah, he was just like, what? So he screeched out in agony because when I told him I listened to this album, I had it back in the day, just didn't resonate with me, didn't get it, you know. And then I listened to it again recently, and I got it. It was a lot better in hindsight, like looking back on it. And it did make me realize that I kind of was stuck. Like, if it isn't Death or Carcass or Morbid Angel, then it's beneath me. I was kind of coming up on the good stuff, right? The finest of the fineries.
Yeah.
And I wasn't listening to anything else that I maybe had just my own opinion on. Maybe the artwork wasn't good enough, you know?
Right.
Maybe the vocals weren't what I was used to or wanted.
Correct.
But the first album I got to mention today is Unleashed with Where No Life Dwells.
Okay.
Their 1991 debut, Swedish death metal. This thing is intense, dark, brutal, angry, and sometimes even a little doomy. Album's got a lot of solid groove when they come around to it, but they've also got like steady, catchy melodies and the interesting grooves that are not necessarily strictly even in 4/4, but it was like slow enough and just intricate enough to where you could kind of understand, and it's still grooved. But yeah, a lot of it is like 4 on the floor, brutal death metal headbanging riffage.
Yep.
But they are great players, and it's got a pummeling attitude. This is one that I appreciated a whole lot more with a more objective view and, you know, a little bit of time to let my tastes kind of all settle down and just kind of be able to listen to something. Sure, you know, I think a lot of times with these older death metal albums, it comes down to a vocal, and he does kind of hang out in that lower mid guttural, you know, and there's not a lot of diversity in the vocal
Right.
or even backups, but these guys were some players with some really sweet riffs and grooves, and I think their 91 debut, Where No Life Dwells, was a really great old school death metal album. We're talking 1991, so death metal's been around,
Yeah.
but not for very long.
Right.
Some of these bands may be on their second or third album around this year. Unleashed drop it into the scene with their first, and they've been around doing it since then.
Yep.
They've been around forever. They may have better albums than this. This is one that I wanted to revisit in my collection and give it a fair shake. And when I listened to it, I thought to myself, yeah, I just didn't get it at the time. And it sounds like some other things, maybe some Obituary, maybe something from my catalog that I already listened to. But I think at the time, it's just a vocal thing for me. And if the vocals didn't match what my brain wanted to hear, I would write off an entirely great album, apparently.
Yeah.
And Where No Life Dwells is one of those albums where I just didn't give it enough love because of the vocals, but the music was great. So had to shout out Eklund, Eliminator, Unleashed for real. Good stuff, man. I absolutely loved it. And it gives me a reason to just kind of pick up from their first album and continue listening to them and give them more of an opportunity chance. Because 1991, now, a long time ago.
A long time ago.
When I had the CD, it was only a couple of years old.
Yeah.
And now it's older than dirt.
Yeah.
But that is a great representation of the old school death metal style that we'll be talking about today. Bands like Unleashed, albums like Where No Life Dwells.
So
Go ahead.
I'll just jump in real quick. This is the only one on the list that I didn't
Yeah.
kind of revisit. So unfortunately, when you started with that one, but the reason why Eliminator liked them because they did focus a lot on the Norse mythology and Viking stuff. So that was right up his alley. It was right up his alley.
His reality.
His reality too. Yeah, and so the Unleashed was founded after Hedlund's departure from Nihilist, and that band actually became Entombed after that. So
okay. So we have an Entombed connection there.
Right, yep, exactly. So it says that they released 14 studio albums and the final one in 2021 here.
Yeah.
And it also says there could be one expected in 2025.
Nice.
So they are still at it, bro.
God, haven't skipped a beat.
Yep. So they are still doing it. And unfortunately, this year, the original lead guitarist, Frederick Lindgren, passed away at the age of 53. So just a few notes. Unfortunately, I can't really speak on that. I do remember listening to that periodically. You would throw the tape in here and there. Because I think even those tapes, even it might have not been a Death or a Carcass, I think sometimes we would just still put something on where we're cruising or hanging out in the bedroom or learning riffs or whatever. We'd still always have something playing. So I remember specifically and always had our CDs and tapes out in front of us because we're always looking at them and flipping through them. So I know that I remember this Unleashed one that you had. I
remember feeling like maybe it had like only one good song on it, and it was the first song. And then the first song did really resonate with me, but the whole album was really great, and it followed that same style. It's not like, oh, the hit single is the first song, and then the rest of it sucks. It was just, I remember the catchy one being in the beginning, and then as I listened to it again, I realized it's all pretty much the same style. They had a little, like instrumental break in the middle, in the beginning, and that was it. Those are the two instrumental breaks you get. Par for the course on a death metal album.
Right.
Maybe a little sample or keyboard or acoustic guitar, and then maybe another one later in the middle, and that's what a lot of that stuff sounded like back in the day. You'd get those little passages of just reprieve, and then most of it was pretty straight death metal riffage.
4 to 5 minute songs of death metal.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, good stuff.
All right, cool. So I'm going to jump into one. This band, actually, Nate from Throne was talking about this band a lot.
Yeah.
Like saying it's one of his favorite bands. And I'm like, well, I'm a fan of Throne and I'm a fan of Nate. So if he says something, one of his favorite things, and I've never heard it, I got to check it out. So I dove into these guys a few years ago. And this band was 1993, Los Osos, California. So this band is Deeds of Flesh.
Okay.
So what's interesting about Deeds of Flesh is, there's going to be some bands that we're going to talk about on this episode, and they might be around just your basic death metal. This is a little more than that. This is brutal technical death metal.
Man, yeah.
Shredtastic, fantastic players, 3-piece. And I mean, it's just pummeling.
Yeah.
It's just absolutely pummeling. And, they've had quite a few studio albums.
Okay.
I went through and I sampled a whole bunch of them, but Trading Pieces was their first one that came out in 1996. Man, when you hear this and you're like 1996 and you hear how fast and brutal it is, how technical it is, it was raw. It was that 93 recording.
Yeah.
But when you're listening to it and you have to know that these guys have to play this kind of music and this proficient and get this kind of take out of them, you're like, okay, there's levels to this stuff,
Yeah.
And this is one of those bands that shows this. And I don't know how I missed this band. Maybe this was too much for me in 96. I don't know. But this is almost even early type slam at points too, because it does get into that groovy type slammy death metal or whatever. But Deeds of Flesh, what a badass band. And I would say if you're a fan of brutal technical death metal, go listen to this stuff. This is like along that like early Suffocation where it just pummels you. It's like next level technical. It's not super fancy, pretty melodic like a Death would be.
Right.
This is more just raw in your face, but oh my God, you cannot bang your head to the not bang your head to this. So Eric Lindmark was a huge part of this band. He unfortunately passed away in 2018 from sclerosis. But Eric, what's interesting about Eric is he actually started Unique Leader Records in 1997 and it has been critical in promoting underground brutal death metal bands. There's so many bands that were associated with Unique Leader Records and so many people supported Eric in Deeds of Flesh because of this. So I thought that was a pretty cool thing that Eric always contributed to music just beyond his own band and was always trying to put on for Unique Leader Records. So
nice.
They launched careers of bands like influenced, bands like Fluja, Disgorge, Hour of Penance, and more. So,
yeah, I listened to Trading Pieces last night, and it is diabolically heavy. Like this thing is just. It reminded me of like self-titled Deicide, but with better production because we're a few years removed from that. So it sounds a lot like that. Just the speed, the tenacity, the riffage, the technicality of it just kind of had me at like, oh, this. I could see where Deicide maybe would have influenced this band because we're talking about Deeds of the Flesh with their debut in 1996 is what I have. Trading Pieces. But and the vocals, they kind of stay in that almost inaudible low range, but they did have some really cool backups to kind of help give some more impact on the vocal front.
Yep. They do high sometimes, too.
Yep, for sure. And so that was very welcome. I did listen to some of Path of Weakening as well. Basically picks up where Trading Pieces left off, only I just felt like it had slightly boosted production levels, but very much a pair of brutal death metal albums. So that old school death metal sound, when sometimes I feel like maybe we're talking about melodic death metal too much when we say death metal because we listen to that In Flames stuff and Death, in the later years was especially melodic. And I feel like a lot of people are like, that's not death metal. That's fair. That's fine. And I could see based on the riffs and the songs that I get you. Like maybe at some point Death is not death metal, quote unquote, to the purists. And that's fine. I get it. I see where you're coming from. For me, a lot of times it just kind of fell on the vocal. Like, well, he's still screaming. That riff's still heavy.
Right.
But when we're talking about old school death metal, and what some of our listeners would probably say, like, no, that's what I'm talking about. Well, that's where Deeds of the Flesh comes in. We're talking about really intense, technical, fast, heavy.
Brutal is a big word.
Brutal. And there might be like hints of melody, but it's more like just great musicianship. And then we're not writing huge songs, compositions. We're just like button them riffs together. So almost riff soup, but I think they bring some things back quite a bit because it has such great riffs.
Yeah.
That they just bring them back. But a lot of this, it's just choppy riffs and cool musicianship, a lot of low guttural vocals, but Deeds of the Flesh, when you talk about an old school death metal band, that is it. That's what they do. And every riff is just mean, angry, and heavy.
Yeah, when you talk death metal and we say, Cannibal Corpse is the kings, they are.
Yeah.
And it's almost like Deeds of Flesh might have not been in the spotlight as much as Cannibal Corpse, because Cannibal Corpse, even though they do grind and they do have some technical stuff, if you really try to play some of your riffs, you're like, holy shit, this is hard.
Yeah.
But this is a different level of musicianship, technicality, and precision. This is like death level precision with Cannibal Corpse type brutality, basically.
Yeah.
But this is a band, even 2 years ago when I heard them, when Nate was bragging them up, and then I just started digging through their catalog. I swear I even mentioned to you, I was like, dude, Deeds of Flesh is badass, or we may have even spoke about it on this podcast before, but another band that I just hang my head and be like, man, why haven't I heard these guys sooner? They've been around for so damn long, but badass band, man.
Some of it I wish I had access to or knowledge of back then compared to what I was listening to, because when that whole grunge era not only took over, but then subsequently died, then you didn't even have grunge anymore when you get to like 95, 96. Like the wheels kind of come off. Like everything sucks. I want to take everybody back, 30 years in time. to the desolation that was the music scene. And, like, we missed a lot of good underground bands because we didn't have the internet like we have today. Like, we had some things, we could dial some things up or whatever, but you just didn't have the access like you have now. The streaming, the instant type it and have it. Like we had to wait till somebody bought it, took a chance on it, because you weren't hearing any of that on the radio at all, period. You didn't have podcasts or streaming, so you really were just kind of like either go take a chance on it, spend the $20, or wait till somebody else like recommends it to you, then maybe.
And also you can think about our record stores. We're gonna have the stuff that was major label stuff, Death, Carcass, the stuff that shined on major labels, and then got the publication in Metal Maniacs, the stuff that was, Deeds of Flesh might have, or Unique Leader might have been an article or something this big, and be like, oh, that might be cool, but do you spend the $20 on it, like you said? Well, how do you get it?
Yeah, what is it compared to? Who's typing it? Who's typing up the review?
Yeah, what friend of ours is going to recommend Deeds of Flesh? Because none that I knew of.
Yeah, we were the people recommending. Here we are talking about music 30 years later. We're the guys recommending the music. If they don't get recommended to us, we didn't hear it.
Right, exactly.
Mostly, and we didn't have the network that we have now. It was mostly just the county of Muskegon. And then you meet somebody at the shows and you maybe talk, but we didn't all stay connected. We didn't just pile on the friends list, so we didn't have this collection, this network that we have now. We can constantly be reminded of things. Back then it was, that guy told me about a band. I totally forgot the band name. They were sick when we listened to them in the car, though. Yeah, it was good stuff. But yeah. So I've got, let me bring it back here. I got another band we'll talk about. Unless there was more to the Deeds of the Flesh.
No, they just have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, like 9 studio albums. They have, most of their tracks are 9 tracks long, and all of them range from 40 minutes to 32 minutes. So that's kind of their sweet spot. So that's about it on those. Like I said at the beginning of this episode too, we're just kind of giving an overview of some of these. There's so much more that we could dive into. So look forward. I would love to spend more time talking about old school death metal and diving into maybe some of these catalogs and really diving into some of these bands. So just know today we're kind of scratching the surface of something maybe that we're going to open up a bigger box for us.
We're going to talk about what would be maybe considered some random death metal albums, and then also some of the better ones that have ever come out that just haven't gotten the love that they deserve on our show or in general, period. But for me, we're going to go down memory lane with this next one and talk about a tape that I had, and we listened to plenty of it, and it was great. And it was Sinister with Diabolical Summoning. These guys are from the Netherlands, another brutal old school death metal band a la Deicide, a Once Upon the Cross album maybe. Their second album, Diabolical Summoning, is a headbanger's delight from start to finish. Talking a lot of groove, solid drum work to match every tight, precise death metal riff, very quick, tight, intricate, palm-muted rhythms, just pummeling the listener over and over throughout a classic old school death metal album. This is one of those things where I didn't remember listening to it at all when I found the tape. And I was like, oh, this looks familiar. Like I must have traveled around with this a lot. Like this is kind of like etched in my brain. And the artwork just immediately like teleported me back to when I driving around with the Buick Regal. So I pulled it up so I can't listen to a cassette. I don't know if I have a tape player in my house. But I pulled it up on YouTube and I listened to it and I just thought to myself, this is as good as I remember it. So this isn't like the Unleashed where I kind of didn't like it or wrote it off at the time. I remember liking this and we listened to it plenty. Just riff after riff after riff. And Diabolical Summoning, I think, what did I say? Their second album. There might be a case for their first album. This is the one that I had that I wanted to revisit, and it was great. I mean, it's just that Deicide or old school Cannibal Corpse style, and just another great album, whereas those bands are great, but if sometimes you feel like you've heard enough and you heard all of it many times over, maybe it's time to reach a little deeper into the old school death metal catalog and dial up some Sinister with Diabolical Summoning, because this thing just had me at whoa. I just loved it, and I still love it, and I don't listen to this style of music like I did back then. Back then it was easy to sit here and dismiss things because you're listening to all of it in the thick of it. You're listening to as much as you can. You don't have access to everything. You do your best, but this is one that I remember listening to plenty, and I was glad to be reminded of it so far down the line and to be able to say, like, yeah, these guys still doing it, and I think they've got quite a catalog themselves.
Oh, a lot of albums here, bro.
So let me just look real quick. I'm on. Oh Jesus,
14 studio albums. One being a covers album, and then numerous demo splits, EPs, and compilations too.
Yeah.
So,
So they've been
prolific.
doing it. Yeah, I caught wind of them in the very beginning. Didn't follow them. Not uncommon at this point. You know, not a lot of bands make it that far. These guys did, which, like Unleashed, makes me feel like I got a dozen or more albums to listen to just by this band alone. So I can speak to the entirety of their career instead of just one gem from the past. Because it would seem to be reasonable to suspect these guys got great work across the board.
Oh yeah,
like they probably didn't fall off.
Yeah, and
it
almost makes me wonder too. When I went back and listened to this Diabolical Summoning, because I remember you having the tape and listening to it, and I'm just thinking, why didn't we get into these guys more? Because they were awesome.
Yeah.
I know you had the tape. I don't think I've had any Sinister or anything, and I just don't know how they flew under the radar. I even listened to the newest one because I even texted you last night. I listened to the Deformation of the Holy Realm, which is the newest one that they put out from 2020, and that thing was slamming. I was like, this is excellent. Like, I could see myself just going down this catalog of Sinister because this was great shit. Like,
I think part of it is like the tastes did change over time, so we didn't just exclusively search out the next heaviest death metal album. So a lot of that, you go by the time we graduate, start getting into like just all kinds of other music. Death metal kind of was the thing that we consumed almost all of it. We either stopped looking for it in light of pursuing other tastes, or just couldn't keep up with all of it anyway. But definitely some good stuff from Sinister and their catalog, and I feel like it's a band that I'm gonna just try to make a more conscious effort if I see them pop up in the algorithm. Like, let's check out this Sinister track real quick, or this album even. So just a great band, still out there doing it. Excuse me, I am froggy today. But absolutely been doing it since the
1988. It said they were
the
formed,
late
bro.
80s. God, yeah.
Oh, what a hell of a band, though. I mean,
when
I popped it back on yesterday, I was like, man, this is sweet, dude.
Yeah, and I don't know if maybe it's just because our young impressionable minds, but
I think we were evolving. Still only have so much time. We listen to the classics. Sometimes you just put on what you know too because you like it. So how many times you're just going to put on Symbolic because it's already familiar? Right. It's like putting on Roseanne or Seinfeld or something in the background because you put something on to have something on because you know it. It makes you feel good. And obviously we've seen them in the Metal Maniacs magazine, but then again, how many Sinister albums were available for us to buy in the record store? Or
they're not always on the shelf.
Yeah, exactly. So, especially being, what are they? It says they're Netherlands. Yeah. So you never knew what we could actually get. Yeah. And then, we were evolving as humans. The music was evolving, and a lot of times, if you notice, we kind of gravitate towards what I said earlier was the stuff that was available and popular, right? Yeah. So when new metal started getting popular, we kind of gravitated towards that because there was some heaviness, but it was something that was accessible and it made sense to us. You know?
And it was new,
and that's who was playing the shows when we were going out to shows. It was the new metal guys, the Mudvaynes, and the Slipknots, and the Nothing Face and those bands. So
I think it's funny
we weren't
too, though.
Seeing Sinister.
No, they weren't coming around.
Yeah,
they weren't making the trip. I think it's also funny though that we can still now today currently listen to that stuff and that style of music like no problem at all. Just consume it. Just eat it all up. I can still listen to all that old school death metal, and I scratch my head and I think most people just aren't getting this. They just it doesn't click.
Yeah.
It's just Cookie Monster vocals and screaming, and they don't get it. I listen to it, and what I like about it, especially revisiting that stuff from the 90s, and I'm sure there's some real gems if we go all the way back to like between 85 and 90, but I love the raw energy of it. Like, because now we've come to a point where everything's polished on the grid.
Yep.
Dialed in, studio, magic.
Yep. Studio magic.
And everything. It might sound good, especially if you got a really great batch of songs, and a great producer who knows how to get the best out of the musicians, but you can listen to some of this old school stuff and just tell that these guys could just let it fly. Mm-hmm. And there was a lot more practice involved because I just feel like the tenacity and the speed is different. Like nowadays things maybe slowed down a little bit, or if they speed it up, it just kind of sounds flat, sterile. You know,
it's
like
too perfect.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
too polished, and
Yep.
you can listen to some of this old stuff, and maybe you heard a mistake, or maybe you didn't. But
yeah, there's a missed kick pedal here, missed, the
yeah.
trigger sounds a little weird here or there, but I kind of like that. That's all charm to me. That's all just saying not everything's perfect, just like life, man.
Yeah, and
it
didn't have all of the keyboard atmosphere necessarily to fill out the sound.
Yeah.
So the death metal, it does have like, the lack of the atmosphere at times,
Yeah.
but it just leans into what they're good at, which is like the double bass kind of filling that sound at times, or just an open power chord progression. But yeah, that old school sound, we can still digest it. We can still listen to it. And it was fun listening to that. And the quality, although not quite what we have today, still pretty good, especially as you get into the later 90s stuff. It was really high quality stuff.
I've noticed that about a lot of these bands that we'll talk about today, of the ones I was listening to, all of it sounds pretty good. And then there are some hiccups in a few of the catalogs that the production really trampled on that album. So they've either re-recorded it or tried to revisit it or whatever.
Yeah.
So at times the production wasn't as consistent as it is today either. One band sounds completely different than another band, but nowadays if you put on some of these newer deathcore bands, every single one of them sounds exactly the same.
Yep.
Like sound sonically wise, the same exact guitar tone. Everybody has a quad cortex. Everybody has the triggered drums with the same trigger. So that's where the creativity stands out.
Yeah.
Where your production just all sounds the same. So
Yeah, a lot of the newer stuff to me is paint by numbers,
Yeah.
and it's like somebody needs to like objectively step back and look at like the entire genre of deathcore and say, what are we doing here? Like, how did we become so derivative? Like, there's good deathcore out there,
Right.
but now it's just a bloated mass of waste mostly, where it's just like, you guys hear yourselves, right? Like that low cacophonous open chug reverbing through the like. How many times can how many bands can rewrite that breakdown?
Right.
How many times can you put it in the same song?
Yeah, exactly.
So like there's some of it you want to look at like where the songwriting went and what happened to the musicality, because death metal wasn't like the most melodic stuff.
No.
But deathcore has like zero melody whatsoever, or songwriting for that matter. It's just like heavy riff, heavy riff, heavy riff. And I like a lot of deathcore. Don't get me wrong. I try to be as objective as possible, but yeah, I think we need to kind of go back to some of this old school death metal like teachings and infuse it in the modern music again.
Well, I was just going to say, like a band like Decedent, or the bands that we talked about. We're talking about the Maggot Stomp bands. I've talked about that, and I've said that. That's the reason why I like this resurgence of these type of bands, because they want more of that raw sound. Like they want, like Josiah was saying. It can't be pretty if it's death metal. Let's make it a little ugly. That's part of the charm. Is let's dirt it up a little bit. Let's not like have everything perfect. Let's perform it the best we can. So there's definitely that too, where it's all about performance. So are you good on?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right, cool. So moving on to this other band. So I thought this band was a butt rock band, dude. Like I literally thought this band was like a power metal butt rock band. So I never even thought, and the name is kind of. So this band is Atheist.
Okay.
It's kind of just one of those things. Maybe I've seen the name and it's just like, it's a little corny. These guys like the art even looks a little butt rock because it's really bright colors,
power
metal,
Yeah.
And I just swept them under the rug.
Yeah.
So as I was getting ready for this episode, I'll just say, as far as Atheist goes, I am no expert. I don't know much except what I researched, and what I heard basically yesterday, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I will tell you that, holy shit, this band flew over my head. I don't even know how that happened. I mean, well, I guess I just told you how it happened. I thought it was something completely different. I put this on yesterday, and I'm just like shitting my pants. Like, what is going on?
Yeah.
This album came out when? Piece of Time. So we're just going to talk about this, and then we'll talk a little bit about Unquestionable Presence. So The Piece of Time came out in 1989. It was recorded in 1988, dude.
Oh, wow.
It was later, Active Records was the original label, later reissued by Season to Miss and Relapse. There's 8 tracks, runtime 33-36. It was actually released, delayed for almost a year due to label complications. It's considered a landmark in technical thrash death hybridization. To me, this album is goddamn amazing. It has that raw vibe to it, but the players are so good on it that the performance makes this record. But to me, this is human level death precision from 1988. And we talk about Chuck worship and all that. If I would have heard atheists back then, not that I wouldn't still worship Chuck, but I'd be like, oh, there is some people out there that can do what Chuck is doing on this high of a melodic, technical level. Now, these guys are known to lean a little more, if you want to use the jazz word loosely, right?
Yeah, it'd be pretty loose.
Because they are kind of all over the place. But then they come out with Unquestionable Presence in 1991, and this is another one that I spun. This is actually cited as one of the greatest death metal albums ever, and I didn't even know that.
Yep, I'm giving that the seal of approval, and I co-sign on that statement as well.
So to me, vocals kind of remind me of like Sadist. We talked a little bit about that, like technical death thrash. If I would have heard this before, though, I would have been just like, I love Atheist. I would have been saying that over and over and over and over for years if I would have heard this 30 years ago when it came out, or 34, or whatever we're at now. So I just want to say Atheist is one of those bands. Do not sleep on this band.
Whoa.
Like I said, I'm not going to go crazy deep into it. Originally, their name was Oblivion. Then they changed it to Ravage, Raging Atheist, Vowing a Gory End, which is stupid as fuck. And then they settled on Atheist in 1987. But what a badass band, dude. What a cool-ass band.
Yeah, so I just listened to their second album.
Unquestionable Presence.
Yes, and what a perfect album. What a great, like, immediately I'm hearing, like, Sadist, excuse me, or Heavy Cynic, or Death Human, but this is, I think, prior to that.
Yeah.
This is ahead of the curve. This is ahead of all of that.
Yep.
So Atheist, maybe one of those bands in the scene, was kind of, like, on the quiet, inspiring Chuck to like do what he was going to do, what he wanted to do, instead of like doing the leprosy or the spiritual healing again. He wanted to move in another direction, and you could hear that when you listen to Unquestionable Presence. What an amazing like thrash death metal album! And because they're like a 3-piece, or I don't know that they're a 3-piece, but I thought it sounded like a 3-piece, and I did get like a hint of Rush coming through the mix.
There's
4, there's a 4. It just felt like you could almost feel a death metal or a 3-piece thing going on there, but maybe it was just the way that they soloed over a bass section. I'm not sure, but that album is a perfect 10 out of 10. Must own, must listen for all metalheads. I too am ashamed I wasn't more familiar with this band over my life, because it would be there would be like, yeah, Chuck's great, but Atheist also special. Like it would have been like right on that same level almost.
Yes,
where
exactly.
I can see where a lot of metalheads are like, Chuck isn't my favorite, so I don't get all this death worship. Well, we grew up and Chuck was the man, but it goes to show that there were some other awesome cats out there doing their thing, and maybe they didn't go to the power metal like Symbolic and Sound of Perseverance, and they stayed more in that like technical jazz death metal type stuff. And would have been nice hearing some of those Atheist albums in 96 to 99 when it was a desolate landscape, and you got Load, you got Cryptic Writings, and like, you're not really vibing with the shit. You want heavy. We were going heavier then.
Heavier, yeah.
We weren't leaning into the songwriting or the melody or the choruses until years later. Like, catch me in 5-6 years after the 21st century emerges, and then maybe I'm into your Kill Switch Engage and the choruses then. But at this time, I just wanted death metal, brutal, hard, heavy, fast. And the melodic was cool.
Yeah,
I like
melody.
I like the trickery on the guitar. Like, show me some sweeps and some taps.
And you'll get that in here too, for sure.
Yeah.
So just real quick to end this off.
Yeah.
So then 93, they came out with their third album, Elements.
Mm-hmm.
To me, they did get a little more progressive into the jazz. Like it started to get a little more cleans and stuff like that. The band did disband after this.
Okay.
So it's kind of like their swan song. To me, going through this one, it wasn't really their best album, and it wasn't as tight. It was just a little dull vocally. And then they came back in 2010, first studio album in 17 years with Jupiter. It was well received by fans of the band, and it says critics said it lacked innovative spark of early releases. To me, I felt like this one was a little more prog than death metal on this one, because they've come, 17 years after the release. But what I liked about Jupiter is now we have this 2010 production, what we were missing in 93.
Yeah.
And even though those albums still sounded good for what they were, you come back and you get actually some good, clean production on this 2010 release. So this is definitely one you might want to visit too. It's just not as it wasn't as like in the brutal more death metal vein as the earliest ones. But what a band I missed! I can't believe it. I don't know. I'm just trying to bow to the metal gods and
it's just weird
find
that
my place.
It's weird that you can listen to the most extreme music and hang out with a bunch of people that also similarly listen to that same style of music, and nobody along the way is like, "Hey, you guys really need to check out this band Atheist." And if they said that to us, they needed to say it like 5 more times, like really in my face, and just say, "Hey, take this and listen to it. Like you need to have this. Like you need to understand and know this." But yeah, same feeling. I listened to it and I was immediately like, "How did I not know about this?" So just turned up a gem. Again, I got it. Great album, 10 out of 10. Must own, must listen to on Unquestionable Presence.
Like anybody now that's like, hey, you like death? Yeah, I love death. Let's talk about death for 15 minutes. Oh, have you heard Atheist though?
Yeah.
That's the conversation you should have with me.
Yeah.
Because that's a conversation I'm going to have with someone else. Oh, you love death? Have you checked out Atheist? At least the first 2 records.
Yeah, and we liked all the bands that came from the death branch of the tree. Anything that was related to them. So Cynic, Sadists, anybody that had
Obituary, Strapping Young Lad, Dark Angel, right?
There's so many offshoots. This is just one that maybe there wasn't a direct tie-in, so we didn't listen to it. But man, I'll be damned if it doesn't sound like some of the better work that Chuck put out in his day. But I absolutely love the Atheist. Good call. So for me, I will roll into one in the memory bank. I absolutely I laugh at this band because your dad, we made him listen to it in the truck when we bought it. But that was the Oppressor.
Oh,
Solstice of Oppression. Actually, it was like a live with some EP stuff. But,
okay.
And then they had Agony follow that up. But the 1994 Solstice of Oppression is probably one of the better prog death metal efforts from early on. I think these guys are from Chicago, Illinois, and it's just a relentless masterpiece which demonstrates precision, melody, technicality, and innovation culminating in an all-time great old school death metal album. They had a great use of like a variety of instrumentation, so they introduced maybe some acoustic or some piano and some keyboards, which is very uncommon for death metal because you're wanting to keep it brutal all the time. And some of it did kind of stand out. It was just a little honk of the keyboard, just honk, honk, and it gave it like this weird sound, but it wasn't like they were layering
like
and layering
over the top.
Yeah, it wasn't a bunch of that. They just kind of used it here and there. It wasn't gimmicky, but it did kind of change up the sound with the keyboard and maybe even some acoustic guitar. And again, per the style of this music, you get like the 1 or 2 musical interludes in the beginning or in one song with the keyboard or the piano.
Which is cool for a breakup. We've talked about that before.
Yeah, for a 45-minute album, you probably need that because some of these albums could probably go and be half as long and still be as good as they are at the length that they're at now. But yeah, just, brutal, technical, melodic, old school death metal album. The vocalist is at a near full-time low guttural without a lot of backups, but there was like some cool effects along the way at least. But I mean, I think for a debut album, 1994 was a great year to do it because it had some banger albums come out that year alone, right around that time frame. So the Solstice of Oppression, I had the t-shirt, wore it around. I listened to plenty of Oppressor back in the day, and it was just kind of fun to get reacquainted with those songs that I used to have in the headphones on the bus ride or even at work. I'd be able to work at the greenhouse and have music going in my ears, and it's just fun to revisit it, and it still holds up.
Yeah,
I was just still surprised at like how technical and shred-tastic these guitarists are, and just the raw sound of it. It just makes me feel like it's not punched in and it's not, like reamped or anything. This like it was a different era, and I could really appreciate how real and raw it is. And you could tell, like just compared to anything that's out today. I know production's come a long ways. Almost too far because we're making things sound clean that shouldn't sound that clean. But I love this album, and I think for any metalhead who hasn't heard of Oppressor, go back and check out their debut because I thought they hit the nail on the head with a nice sounding technical death metal album that was kind of turning the corner from the old school into a more modern approach on things. But just a great album and had a lot of fun listening to those guys back in the day.
Absolutely. I remember jamming Agony too because we liked Oppressor. I remember us even back in the day, and even now when you listen to it, you can almost hearken it to some like Morbid Angel.
Yep.
That kind of death metal. Yeah, I jammed this yesterday, and I was like, this really still holds up as well.
Yeah.
This Oppressor. I actually remember us liking this a lot back in the day. We spun this one a lot, dude.
Yeah.
We listened to this one a lot because it was a little more than your just basic death metal. There was a lot more going on there. It looks like they three members reformed Oppressor in 2024 and played their first show in 25 years. So,
wow.
That's kind of crazy because they were done, it looks like, in 1999.
Yeah.
I enjoyed what I listened to yesterday again. I was like, man, I will go down the Oppressor train again and really listen to some more. But they only had the 3 studio albums. So,
Yeah.
And then looks like maybe some compilation stuff too. But
Yeah.
Solstice of Oppression, that was the one you had though, right? Or was it Agony that you had?
I had Agony,
Okay.
and I had the one with the live and also either
Blood Flows.
Yeah.
That one.
So
Yeah.
it was like half live and half some studio stuff. It had some cover songs on it, so it was
Okay.
a variety. But it had a lot of the work from Solstice of Oppression, and I recognized all kinds of songs from it when I listened to it again recently, because half of it was at least on the EP that I had. But it's just a great trip down memory lane. Still a great album, probably their best work, and worth checking out if you're a metalhead who likes some of that technicality, tenacity,
Yep.
and just brutality, but a little bit on the cleaner side when we talk. It's raw, but it's not like the HM2 raw.
Oh yeah,
you
it's
know? So
clean. It's
a little bit more.
It's
A little bit more polished.
Yep.
They had it dialed in for some of the speed that they were after too on the guitars. So yeah, good album. I had to bring it up. I figure it's one of those that's up there, even if it's a bit of a one-off. Like they don't have a long catalog. They just have the 3 releases.
Yep. Still a good one to bring up. Maybe not one that people always will bring up when you talk old school death metal.
Right.
And that's kind of what we're talking about today. Unlike this next band that I'm going to bring up, this band is always mentioned, but the reason why I'm bringing this band up is because this is another band that took me a long time to get on this train, and one of the ones that when I finally did, I was slapping myself at that time too, questioning why no one ever forced this upon me.
Yeah.
So this band formed in 1990 in New York. Suffocation we're talking about.
Man.
So they kind of pioneered the brutal death metal genre with slam. So, Internal Bleeding, I know a lot is accredited to the slam.
Yeah.
Like they're kind of the guys that made slam a thing. When we talk slam, it's just more groove, slammy riffs combined with the death metal.
Yeah.
And Suffocation, they did it so well. Because back in the day, we listened to death and all this melodic stuff, and I always liked the groove, and you know me, I'm always the downbeat guy. But they were doing the breakdowns.
Yeah.
And that's why it pisses me off that I missed this, because I would have been like, when I finally got into the deathcore and some of the hardcore and heard the breakdowns, I'd be like, oh, Suffocation's been doing that, dude.
Yeah.
Like, they been on that shit. Like,
Yeah.
This ain't new. At the time, it was new because I'd never heard Suffocation before. I don't know why. It was just a band that I just never bought anything from them. I never listened to them for some of the same aforementioned reasons that we talked about earlier. But what a badass band. They have so many sick albums. I could go on. We could do 2-part series just on Suffocation, to be honest. And I know they're one of the more popular bands, maybe not a forgotten old school death metal band, but goddamn, they rule. So, they gotta have. They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 studio albums.
Okay.
Ranging from 91 to 2000. No, 9. Excuse me.
Okay.
Because they have the 2017. Then they just put one out last year. I forgot this list didn't include that. But these guys are responsible for influencing probably most deathcore stuff.
Yeah.
Most other brutal death metal bands. And I will just say, so the Effigy of the Forgotten came out in 1991. It's kind of one of the first brutal death metal albums. Was produced by Scott Burns. So another wild reason why I never knew of that, because usually if his name was on it, I was snatching up anything from that. I would have loved this back then.
Yeah.
I know it.
Yeah.
And I love it now. But this first album, it's just sick. It's groovy. It's brutal. It's raw. It's everything you want in old school death metal. And then I know you'll probably talk about this one, but then we kind of move on because they did come out with Breeding the Spawn, but this is one of the ones I was talking about where the production was kind of not very good on it, so it was kind of overlooked, especially when you're playing this kind of music. You got to have that low end. You got to have them drums punching you in the face, because if you don't, then it loses all of its glory as far as metal goes. You got to have that thick production. But then you go down to Pierce Within, which is highly regarded as probably one of their top works, even though it's one top earlier works, I should say, because they've evolved so much since then. But I think the Pierce from Within is a top 10 death metal album of all time.
Yeah.
What a badass album this is too, man. Just intricate. The songwriting is good on it. It's groovy. It's brutal. I don't really know what else to say about it.
Great choice. And, when you look back at the series of all-time death metal albums that we've done like 3 episodes of that.
Yep.
This is an album that goes on one of those lists.
Yep.
Like, it's overlooked, admittedly. And now we kind of have to double back, and next time we do that episode, this album needs to be mentioned as an all-time death metal or extreme metal album that any metalhead should listen to. 1995's Pierce from Within. It's punishing, it's technical, it's heavy, it's brutal death metal in the vein of Deicide, Once Upon the Cross, or Cannibal Corpse, The Bleeding, even kind of sounding like a heavy individual thought patterns, but just with more lower guttural vocals. They had some of those similar guitar effects that maybe Andy LaRocque used in the studio on the lead parts. So I could just almost hear the sound of individual thought patterns. But this album is mostly all groove with some moments of thrash or grind stitched in along the way, which is fine because they didn't lean on that. That was an overall style. The overall style was that groove, that heavy, just mid-paced tempo, but just punishing and technical, great players, great musicians. The bassist reminds me of Alex Webster, so you can hear him in the mix. This album for me is a 10 out of 10, and it's an all-timer for death metal and extreme metal, and it's a must-have or a must-listen to for any metalhead, especially if you like death metal or extreme metal or guttural vocals or tenacious speed and just hella groove. Pierce from Within, Suffocation. I mean, man, and these guys been doing it for a long time. Got a lot of body of work, but this is one too that I felt like the lineup was maybe one of the better lineups, and the outcome from that album is just one of those things. It's a gem that lasts the test of time. Yeah. So Suffocation, Pierce from Within, and the first 3 albums maybe like all of that brutal old school death metal, but this is just one that, again, 1995, 1994. When we get to those years, like now the genre's been happening for a while, and some of these bands are just peaking with their playing and their songwriting and the production levels, where you kind of hit that sweet spot. Like there's some really good stuff from 85 to 90, 91, but then when you get to 93 to 96, like 95, like there's a real sweet spot of old school death metal that had kind of matured, both in terms of songwriting, musicianship, and production. Once you get to that, it might be the debut album, but it might be a band's 3rd or 4th album. But when you finally get to like that year, a lot of magic starts to unfold and reveal itself, because now the genre is like 10 years old. We've got bassists in the mix. We figured out how to record things in the studio and get the right tones. And
this type of music for sure. Yeah.
It took some of that old stuff is really hard to listen to when you go back in time to the mid 80s. You go 10 years forward, and there's been a lot of effort into dialing things in and getting the right tones and the right sounds. And some of these albums really reflect that. There must have been a lot of excitement just being in the studio and playing stuff back and hearing it and saying to yourself, that sounds like it should. It sounds better than I thought, So
absolutely.
Just one of those albums, if you got the time and you've never heard Pierce from Within by Suffocation, put that on your playlist for immediate listen. Or if you've listened to it but not in a while, revisit it. Be inspired, because this thing had me just constantly with the pissed off look on my face, just mad that I missed it, mad that nobody said. And I know a couple of people have been like, "You're not hip to Suffocation."
Yeah,
I've heard that before. I've been like, "Yeah, I just never did the dive." And finally, here we are, 30 years later. I did the dive. I listened to some Suffocation, one of the greatest death metal bands, period. And I think that's a death metal band that people are going to say, stamp of approval, wear the badge, Suffocation fan day one. Do that, because our guy kind of he didn't bamboozle us, but he went to the power metal, and it was fine. It was great. Still heavy, had some teeth on it, but I'd take, and pull Sound of Perseverance out of the player when I'm done with it, and I'd throw in Pierce from Within to like kick it up a notch. Like, let's go back to heavier, heavy.
Yep.
I like that melodic. I like that songwriting. I like everything Chuck did, but sometimes I think there was a lot of that teenage Chuck worship going on.
Yeah,
and
that's
like
part of it.
some of it, somebody really needed to say, "Hey, I've heard the Death albums, my guy. This is the 10th time today. Let's put some Suffocation on, please. I need it harder, heavier, faster." And
I need you to grow up a little bit here.
Yeah,
buddy.
I need you to get with this real heavy death metal shit. And that's one of them that it's an all timer. Like, and some of these too. I was looking this up because I'm like, I have to own it. Like, I have to. That's me.
Yeah.
If it belongs like on an all time list, or it's just something that I'm like, every song fucks. Like, I have to own it.
Yep.
So I was looking up some of these albums now go for a pretty penny.
Oh, I've seen that.
And I'm like, you can't just get these for that $15 pop.
Yep.
Some of them are going to be $40.
Yep.
Some of them got 50. Some I've seen one. It was well over $100 to have a physical copy of one of these CDs. We haven't talked about them yet, but I was like, I'm not doing it.
Nah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
I think one time my wife purchased me an album that was up over $100.
Damn.
It was one. It was like a Christmas present or something.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, like, this is a band that they're not going to be around ever again. They're not going to ever print this again.
Yeah.
It's kind of like act on it before it becomes more ridiculous and stupid. Like, so if you're thinking of me, maybe this year I'll be the dummy that says I want the $100 CD.
Yeah.
Like, what's the point? Well, the point is like, it's a memory. It's a collectible. It's an item I want to have. But yeah, some of these albums, good luck. You could stream them, but if you're like me, where you got to collect, you're going to be in for some sticker shock. If some of these albums you don't already own, you might not be owning. Because
when I was looking up artwork for
pricey.
one of the, sorry, I didn't mean
to
interrupt you, buddy. I was looking up artwork for the one of the episodes we were doing, and we had talked about the cephalic carnage that should be out by now anyway. But the cephalic carnage anomalies, and so sometimes I can go into Amazon because they have pictures of all. Like actual JPEGs that you can download from Amazon. I go in there and it was like $66.
Yeah.
I'm like, damn. Just for the CD. I was like, holy fuck, dude. But I get it, man. When they're not common, they're not around. It's
some of
gotta pay to get your hands on one.
Yeah, some of these things, they're not going to be in print.
Nope.
So when some things there's plenty of.
Yeah.
You can get them for $10. 2-door delivery from Prime.
Yeah.
You got it. Other things, like we're talking about today, this old school death metal shit, they might not exist anymore.
Yeah.
You might get some for the $20 spot if you want it, if you collect. I'm just froggy today. I apologize.
It's okay,
but others, if you're a collector, you might have to like hands off for a minute. Like that's a more expensive album though, and I gotta really make a decision. Like, hey, do I need to collect it for $50?
Right.
Like, I don't think I need it that bad. Case in point, there's a Nevermore DVD. I think you might own it. There's like a 2010 maybe DVD that they've got, and I look for this thing, and it's like $200 if you want it now.
Damn.
Yeah. So like now,
that's the one that has Broderick playing on it.
I think so. Yeah. It's like it's everything except for their last album, I believe. So, just one of those things where I wanted it.
Yeah.
I want to watch it, but it's on YouTube.
Yeah.
I don't have to spend a penny to watch it.
Yeah,
so, like, it's really just a matter of like wanting to possess a thing.
Yeah.
When I don't need it.
Yeah. What do you do?
What
are you going to do with it?
Rare is the time that the internet is down, and I'm like, oh my God, I want to watch a DVD.
Yeah.
Like, so I really don't need it.
Absolutely.
But it's like one of those things too, when you're a collector and you're showing off your collection, you're kind of like, well, that would be a glorious addition
to show.
to just show off to my friends. Like the young guy we had from Decedent, the collector.
Oh, yeah.
Their bassist, name. But he's like, he loves geeking out.
Malachi.
Yeah, Malachi, thank you. Yeah, shout out Malachi. I'm the same. I love having a guest over, take him down to my office and show him all of my things.
Yeah.
Look at this thing that I got.
Yep.
Hundreds of things to look at. Yeah, great album.
But
great stuff.
But yeah, just to finish off real quick with Suffocation, because like I said, there's so much information and so many albums. But when you get to around to 2013, they came out with The Pinnacle of Bedlam. And when you start listening to this, it has like this new production on it, new brutality. this to me, this is like never been tighter suffocation, never been deadlier. I mean, the song structure actually is recognizable on this album as well. So you get to this 2013, and then you get to Of Dark Light in 2017, and this is probably my personal favorite Suffocation, but that's because Eric Moderati on drums joined the album, and he's actually the guy that's playing with them right now and played on the newest one. He's on tour with them all the time. I actually follow him on Instagram, so he's posting all these live videos. That dude is a phenomenal drummer. When I seen Suffocation play live, not one goddamn note was missed on the double kicks, anything, and all this intricate. I was blown away. Like, holy shit, this dude is amazing. Yeah. So, Of Dark Light is also another amazing album. So, Suffocation, just with a whole bunch of good shit they put out there. Even the one they put out in November 2023 that was on our last year. I think we put that on last year's list or whatever.
It was mentioned in the last year or two here. Yep.
But that was a good one too. I know a lot of people downplayed it because it was overproduced or whatever, but
they still slap. They still going hard. Yeah. Still a great, amazing representation of extreme metal music. Never sold out. Never softened their sound. Never branched out to a unrecognizable format.
Nope.
It's been Suffocation from day one to today.
Yep, absolutely.
And it's good. Like, everything about it is tasty, fast, hard, heavy, and great musicianship. So yeah, get with the Suffocation if you haven't yet, because you're missing out. We know we were missing out.
We missed out. We got a lot of catching up to do.
Totally missed that one. But
that was another Eliminator one that he let me borrow, Blood Oath. He's like, you never heard Suffocation before? I was like, dude, they're just a band that flew under the radar. And this is how, about 10 years ago now, we were going somewhere together in the car, and we were listening to it. I was like, damn, this is sick, dude. Yeah. And that's kind of when I started getting on them. But, man, just a band I slept on for too long.
Well, I'm going to take you on the way back again here.
Sure.
And that's what the whole episode's about here. We're going to talk about one that we listened to a ton, and for great reason, too, with Necrophobic Nocturnal Silence.
Goddamn banger.
Man, what a mint black and death metal album. It has so many anthemic, memorable guitar leads that are they're simple but tasty, and they're kind of like that circular like it just kind of repeats, but it's almost like Kiss, keep it stupid simple.
Yeah.
Like, the lead work is so tasty and just it's stupid simple. And so many songs throughout this album have that. They have that moment, and then it'll move into like maybe a trim pick and a black and death metal riff. And then they'll go into like the power chord obituary style, but upbeat tempo, like up tempo, but just a really simple chord progression. This is one that I was in my element listening to it again recently, because I just was kind of transported back to the day, cruising around, flipping that tape deck over and over. Like, it didn't matter what was side one or side two. Both of them started with a little instrumental piece, and then it would just roll out with the heaviest of black and death metal. And I think we were both just really surprised, because back then you'd see an album like this, the album art cover, and you'd be like, oh, black metal or something, or just grim satanic death metal that a lot of times didn't kind of pan out in the quality sector, either songwriting or production. Right. You'd get some dog shit.
Oh yeah.
So a lot of times we stepped in that dog shit. You'd buy an album, for $15, and you were like, this sucks.
Yeah.
But man, we got all the dog shit albums out the way to get to this one.
Yep.
And this is the one that you suffer all them other ones for. Because then you get this, and you're like, oh, this makes it worth it. This is $100 tape. I'll buy this for $100 because the other 9 tapes suck.
Yeah.
They're not it. But so we got Swedish black and death metal, groovy, melodic, but also fast. It's grindy at times with some up-tempo, like rock beats almost in the pocket. But then
that's part of that black metal shit, though.
Yeah, for sure. But then they've also got, the drum work lets the guitars do the heavy lifting by letting the riffs shine throughout. So they can do those simpler beats and just let the guitars do their thing. And the vocals also help carry this album a lot. They got that compelling, satanic storytelling, goblin out front. I just love listening to this guy. Sometimes you can lose me with them lower gutturals. He does have like a lower mid-range, but it's not constantly in that Cookie Monster cellar.
Yep.
But it's haunting. They got the ghoulish wails over the top of these trem picking and power chord madness. Also, a lot of circular guitar melodies. So when you get to listening to it, you're just going to be like, you're gonna have riffs stuck in your head. Those little melodies, they just like they hook you right in.
Absolutely, dude.
And I did notice that as I was watching the YouTube, it had the track list on it, but it was different from my track list on my cassette tape. So there was like some snafu in the production of this album, which just kind of adds to the lore of this album, where at first it was pressed and it features the song Inborn Evil on it, but it was misnamed as Shadows of the Moon.
Oh, really?
On the album. But then it also says that they repressed it with the correct listing and it didn't have Shadows of the Moon on it. And then it says, as I'm watching the YouTube video, that it had both of the songs in this particular video. So he managed to splice in the full, every song.
All of them.
And I did not recognize the Inborn Evil track when I heard it. I was like, okay, this sounds good, just like the rest of the album, but I don't have a memory bank of this one. So my tape says Shadows of the Moon, and that's what I have on it because I recognize that one when I listen to it.
Yep.
But my tape does not say the words Inborn Evil on it, nor does the music from Inborn Evil appear on my cassette tape. But but it fit. Like the Inborn Evil, whatever reason it wasn't on or whatever reason they're going to cut, doesn't matter. It fit with the rest of the album. It sounded like the rest of the songwriting. And the Nocturnal Silence album from 1993 is just one of those beautiful blends of black metal and death metal and melodic death metal, where it just makes this like an all-time great 10 out of 10 must-have, must-listen album for the ages. I just felt like maybe some of these that we talked about today, take them or leave them, but this Necrophobic was one for me that I was like, you gotta have it. You gotta listen to it. You gotta know it.
Yeah.
Just like that's one we did know back in the day.
Yeah, that's one we did know. We played the shit out of that tape. I think maybe I just dubbed it from you, but I remember listening to this all the time by myself with you. I remember you're the one that showed it to me, but I think the reason why we gravitated towards it so much is maybe we expected some black metal, but we got more of the death black metal, and just the melody always speaks to us. So if you got a good melody, you're going to kind of pull us in. You weren't giving us all the shitty black metal production and all the stuff that we might thought we would have got with some of this earlier 1993 black metal, right?
Yeah.
You know, the playing is very good on it, very precise, but it's not so brutal and over the top that it's not audible to the ears, where it's like, oh, we're just trying to be so brutal and satanic. It's not like that. It's more of a polished version of melody and, you know, showcasing brutality as well, you know. God, I love this album. And just on a side note, the album they put out last year was fantastic too. I know I talked about it when it wasn't top 10 album, but we did talk about it a little bit. But that's how, when I played it last year, I know I texted you right after because I was like, remember these motherfuckers? Because we've been listening to these guys. Well, we listened to them when this came out in 93. Since then, it was after that tape, I'd lost all just another band that's so many bands, so much music, you know. But listening to them again last year, I was like, okay, these guys still are badass. So, man, nothing but love for this album myself. Nothing but love for this band. You know, I don't really know too much about them because they weren't a band like a Carcass or a Death where we had to watch every video and know everything about them. Yeah. And how much was out there about these guys? Another thing, going back to at this time when music was put out, it was put out by some label or some magazine or some publication that pressed it, that we were able to see it. So we really have to dig in to get a hold of a Necrophobic, or, you know. So
and one of those things too, you take a chance on it.
Yeah.
You just buy it based on the cool looking satanic seal on the front, hoping that it's actually, it sounds as evil as it looks. Because too many times you'd buy something and be like, well, it looks cool, but it's dog shit.
Yeah.
I can't listen to it. You know, it's just that old school Fisher Price recording, you know, like that grim raw stuff that I couldn't listen to. This was a lot more polished and just an all-time banger for the ages. Like,
and the cover of this one is kind of, it's like the name is kind of evil, and then it's got, you know, it's basically the pentagram, but it's like purple and pink and silver a little. So you're just kind of like, what is this? But it also does remind you of like Legion too.
Yep.
So I don't know if that's the reason why you picked it up, because you're like, oh, cool, here's just a symbol on the front that's a pentagram. This has got to be good. But But Venom had that same thing, and that shit was garbage. So I don't know, you know.
Yeah, sometimes it doesn't sound like it looks, and that's the real shame. And
Yeah.
it's not as good. But this one lives up to all of that.
Yeah, the fucking Nocturnal Silence, so good, dude.
Yeah, just an
So
all-timer. So if
good.
you haven't heard Necrophobic or this album, Nocturnal Silence, we're talking old school death metal today. You want to listen to this one. You want to say you've heard it. You can compare it to other things, and that it is what it is. And for me, it's a 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
This is an all-timer.
Yep.
Needs to be talked about, and we need to gas it up as we go.
Nope. Okay.
So,
Ready to move on?
Yeah.
All right. So another band that I slept on for a long time because I thought they were just more of almost like just maybe a little on the, how would I say this? I don't want, maybe like on the corny side, on the cheesy side a little bit when it comes to death metal, because I was always looking for that next thing when it came to melodicism and proficiency in playing.
Yeah.
And so the band I'm talking about is Bolt Thrower.
Okay. Yep.
I didn't really know with a name like Bolt Thrower. I was kind of like, what is that? It's kind of a dumb name. I was like, what actually is that? I thought maybe it was just like obviously they were long before a 6 Feet Under, but I thought that was kind of the music that they were,
Okay.
And there is kind of some cross connection, but I didn't know how good Bolt Thrower actually was until I dove into them.
Yeah.
So they are a British death metal band formed in 1986 in Coventry, England.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of their stuff is war themed. But they are just that mid tempo. They don't have a lot of blast beats. They don't have a lot of crazy guitar solos or anything like that. But goddamn, they got some good melody. They got some good riffs. That tight when it locks in, them trim riffs when it locks in with that double kick, and you're just mid pace, just ready to march to war. I was like another band that I slept on because these guys have some fantastic music. Absolutely awesome band. And the reason why I got into Bolt Thrower is almost this reverse path, right? So a few years ago, and I know I've talked about this band multiple times on the show, Frozen Soul.
Yeah.
I'm like, I love this band. And everybody's like, yeah, they sound a lot like Bolt Thrower. And I'm like, I keep fucking hearing this, and I really love this Frozen Soul band. I might want to go listen to this Bolt Thrower band. Then I listen to Bolt Thrower, I'm like, okay, I get it. I see what we're doing here. Yeah, they do sound like Bolt Thrower, but so, everything comes from somewhere. I just went on the reverse path to get there. What a badass band.
Yeah.
Let's see. I know I had a few notes here, so I just wanted to make sure. So to me, the Fourth Crusade is absolutely awesome in 1992, but War Master was also a great one that came out February 1st, 1991. They had a refinement in songwriting on this one. More clean, like the production was a lot cleaner and more defined riffs. So the War Master is just a death metal classic. For some reason, I just skipped over these guys, maybe just because at the time I didn't want to hear the simpler, more death metal. But these guys just make all those right choices when it comes to death metal, because if you can have simple death metal and it can really get into that cheesy category fast if you don't do it right.
Yeah.
These guys do everything right and push that like basic death metal almost into the category of like untouchable badass shit because they're so good at what they do, right?
Yeah, agreed.
So these guys are the originators of, just that mid-paced, keep it simple, stupid kind of death metal.
Yeah.
But man, another one, you talk about the melodies in Necrophobic. The melodies on this is just so cool, man. You can listen to I was listening to this the other day, getting ready for this episode, and then 2 hours later, I still got this melody in my head. I'm like, fuck yeah, dude, this is so cool. But like I said, Fourth Crusade is also a badass record. That came out in 92. They slowed down a little bit, and you can tell that their guitar almost added more of the HM2 sound. They kind of have more of that crushing, just wall of guitar. True old school death metal is the Fourth Crusade. But goddamn, Bolt Thrower, what a sweet band. I don't know why I slept on them. This is another band, though, that I will be listening to and diving into a lot more. As far as albums go, they didn't have a ton.
No. And when their drummer, Martin Kearns, passed away in 2015, they decided they were not going to ever come back because it was not something that they could, honestly say to themselves, we can go forward. This is a band that decided that he was too integral a part of the band, and there was no really going forward with somebody else on the kit. Yeah. So we have a limited amount of Bolt Thrower, but we do have enough to dive into if you're not familiar with their catalog, we're looking at least 5, 6, 7, 8 albums,
Yep.
plus a couple other EPs or other releases along the way. So plenty to listen to. But go ahead, Jay. I have some things I want to say, but I wanted to make sure that you got everything in that you had to say.
Yeah,
about
the last thing I just kind of want to point out is that, Colin Richardson's name comes up because he was a crucial figure in helping shape their sound. He was on several of their, remixed albums or recording or engineered for their plenty of their stuff. And Colin Richardson's name, obviously, the UK connection with Carcass, his name came, he was responsible for some Carcass work. So I just wanted to put that out there because he was a big part in the bolt thrower lore and everything that they basically accomplished. He definitely helped out a lot. So
yeah. So for me, this is a band that I, similar to you, just probably dodged for a variety of reasons, namely the band name and the band logo. It looks corny.
Oh, yeah.
It just doesn't look like death metal to me. More power to them by saying like, hey, we're just going to go with this power metal look, but the sound is closer to a grooving death metal. So I'm just researching like, all right, let's get on the bolt thrower train. There's a lot of albums to listen to enough anyway. I wanted to make sure I picked one that was a good representation of their catalog. So I listened to For Victory, their fifth album released in 1994. These guys are already well deep into the game at this point. This is like a middle of the legacy or middle of the band's career album. But it's just groovy and melodic, rich, full lead guitar work, thick rhythms driving the groove riff fest. Many disgusting, punishingly heavy pocket rhythms. Really good production. To me, reminiscent of something like Heartwork or Domination. And another 10 out of 10. Must own. Classic old school death metal album for the ages. And that's just one of theirs that you didn't even really mention. So I'm assuming that almost everything these guys did sounded pretty much like what they sound like.
Yeah.
And that everything's great. But I went with For Victory because it got a lot of rave reviews. But it's also in that sweet spot, that 1994 where we're hitting our stride. And I can count on the production being a little bit better. And we've got several albums under our belt. And, you talk about, they kind of keep it simple with the beats, but within some of those, they're really simple pocket drumming, like just backbone, easy does it back there on the kit. But man, the riffs within, if it's 4 on the floor, but they're just like punishing in that short little space, in that little groove. And they got plenty of awesome melodic passages. Now, I didn't get the feeling that we had one of the world's best shredders in the band.
Right.
But they did some guitar solos, and I thought we're fine. I really wanted those to kind of be elevated to another level of musicianship, which was the only, thing I could say that I wish there was more of was, over-the-top guitar solos. They didn't really have that, but they did do some guitar soloing, and it was good. And it kept with the simple melodies that they had already used in the song. But the For Victory album by Bolt Thrower, just for me, then they probably have several of these. And it makes it another one of these bands we'll probably talk about again. We'll come back to the series, but
yeah, for sure.
They just have a solid catalog of work. And, I've said it several times on the show today, but several of these albums, they're must have, must own, must listen to it again and again. And yeah, they're older. Some of these listeners of our show may not be familiar with these band names at all. Well, that's okay. Come on in and have a seat beside Old Head Mod. I also have not listened to all of this stuff. And Jay, too, not listened to every single one of these albums.
Nope.
And it's, we're finding it out as if, we're in our 20s and just discovering some old bands that came out before we were born. Well, no, we were there for it. We just overlooked some of it. And, it happens, especially these days where there's so much music. It is nice to take a break, go back, listen to some of the things that came out 30 years ago or more, and appreciate them with a newness. Because I know, the Suffocation album and even this Bolt Thrower, if you drop this shit tomorrow, it's top 10 for 2025.
Yeah.
Easily.
Yep.
This stuff still holds up. These are still some of the best albums of all time for extreme metal music. If you haven't gotten hip to the Atheist, the Bolt Thrower, the Suffocation, you got plenty of time. Dial these things up and get hip to them because this is some of the best metal I've ever heard. And yeah, I'm a little dumbfounded that I didn't get hip to all of this, but at least here we are talking about it now. And I gotta say, I loved it. I was just kicking myself for not knowing it, but I'm glad we know it now. Get out there and listen to some Bolt Thrower. They're not coming back. You're not going to get any more Bolt Thrower. So,
well, what a great death metal band.
Yeah, all timers for sure.
All right, buddy, you got one more?
Am I up for the last one? Yeah,
Yep.
We're going to talk about one. These guys actually been in the news a little bit lately. I think everything's fine now, but for the last month or so, a lot of eyes and attention is being paid to the band Malevolent Creation.
Okay.
Because their founding guitarist Phil Fasciana has been in the hospital with like some bacterial pneumonia.
Yeah.
And so he was in a induced coma. So by the time this drops, Phil should be fine.
Yeah.
Back to touring again. And, wish Phil all the best in his recovery. What a downer. So they had to take a few dates off. But Malevolent Creation is a band from Buffalo, New York, who dropped the 10 Commandments all the way back in 1991. So now we're really in the thick of that old school death metal, kind of riding out that first wave to the crescendo of the early 90s. Now, immediately when I put this on, I had the tape. I don't know what happened to it. I couldn't find it. But I became hip to these guys through a compilation tape called Live Death.
Okay.
And it had Suffocation, Cancer, Malevolent Creation, at least one other band. But it had like these micro sets, like 3 or 4 songs live. And I really loved the Malevolent Creation on it. So I went out and I got the only other thing available to me at the time, which was the 10 Commandments. Now, upon a recent revisiting, it just reminded me of Death meets Obituary. Like they had the technicality of Death.
Yep.
And even like that old school Chuck scream, that ghoul. But it leaned into that Obituary scream too. And also with like some of the power chord progressions. Reminded me of Obituary on that front. But they had like the technicality of Death. And just like, it surprised me because I'm like, I had this back in the day. Why didn't we listen to it more?
Yeah.
Like I knew I liked it then. I never shit on it. I never had anything negative to say about it. I just felt like needed to play it more, just get some more miles out of it. But this, again, and it's the last time I'm saying this today, I believe, it's another 10 out of 10 must own melodic death metal album. Like you got to listen to the 10 Commandments. You got to. It's like that thrash death metal.
Mm-hmm.
It does kind of remind of the Sadist a little bit, but closer to the Death and Obituary, but just some of that speed. But you got the ghoulish vocals, the sick riffs, and just a lot of bite. Just a lot of mean, treble, punchy, in your face, brutal, fast. And just an all-timer for me. I've said that a lot today, but I did own this one back in the day, and I think it still holds up. This is another one you can't really get your hands on it. And you're spending a pretty penny if you have to have it in your house.
Yeah.
But you can stream it, you can find it, and it is their debut. And to me, I just think it's a band that people should know. They've been around a long time, like your Suffocation, like your Sinister, like your Necrophobic. Yeah. They're still out there doing it. Phil, he's going to be back on the road here soon, all back up to 100%. And they're going to continue their tour that they had planned out. So there's still a band that's out there doing it, been doing it this whole time. Maybe had a hiatus in there. A lot of these bands, you're that old now. You've probably taken a hiatus along the way, but just another one that if you haven't listened to it, do yourself a favor. I think it's a great album. I didn't have one problem along the way listening to this album. I was like, why didn't I listen to this more? That's the only thing I could think of is why didn't I listen to this more? I knew it was good, but maybe the car went from tape deck to CD player. I don't know.
Yeah.
But Malevolent Creation, a very prominent name in death metal and one that I think we need to throw them their flowers at this point in time because they've been there since the beginning. They're still out there doing it and they still sound good. So,
yeah.
Go ahead, Jay.
Same for me. Just another band that I listened to yesterday, getting ready for this. And I was like, why didn't I listen to Malevolent Creation more? I always knew about these guys. It wasn't like an Atheist where I just kind of seen it one time and it just never crossed my path again or this name never registered. Always knew about these guys. I was like, maybe these guys I thought they were something, so I didn't listen to them. So preconceived notions can be a real fucking bitch sometimes because if you think something's something and then you don't know. Because this particular tape, I don't ever remember listening to with you or you having it. So when you brought up this name, I was actually intrigued because this is just a never whatever. A lot of death metal people will be like, well, what about Malevolent Creation? Well, what about them? They're fucking awesome, dude. I don't know what to tell you. They're just a band I missed. They're a Florida band. So there should have been another band that I should have known about because they were in that scene, that Florida Tampa scene.
I got them as from Buffalo, New York.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
They did kind of the Cannibal Corpse thing where they
moved down there.
Yeah, relocated to Florida.
Makes sense.
Yeah, man, what a badass band. I don't have much to say about it except when I turned it on, it was just another one of those things where like this is just as good as a Suffocation or a Bolt Thrower or any of the other things that we mentioned. I was like, or even a Death, earlier Death or something. I'm like, this is just as good as anything that death metal wise I heard. So another band I'd like to dive deeper into and just take more in.
Yeah, I mean, same. They got a long catalog. They've been doing the work for years, 30 years plus. So it's just a band for me that I'm like, I like them. And it just kind of goes to show, like, you can kind of see where we kind of hit, like, a plateau where it's like our listening taste kind of, like, evolved because, and a lot of those bands did kind of disappear on you.
Yeah.
Like, Carcass went with Swan Song, Death with Sound of Perseverance, and then subsequently just becomes Control Denied.
Yeah.
So a lot of the bands that we liked kind of just shift away from what we liked about them in significant enough ways that we were left with, well, I guess we're moving on too.
Yep.
I'm going to Machine Head and Vision of Disorder because that's got a little bit more of the anger and the bite that I want. Some of the stuff was, getting a little too melodic and a little too,
polished. And
So these are some of the things that, we could have fallen back on, but we kind of shifted when they shifted. Like, oh, you're pivoting? Well, we're going to pivot too. So enter the Slipknot, enter the Mudvayne.
Yeah.
I needed some of that young, angry blood. Whereas these guys are starting to get to like been there, done that, and I'm like in the thick of it. I'm like, no, I need more.
Right.
I need that more of that heavy stuff. And if you guys aren't doing it, well, we'll find it somewhere else. But yeah, just a band that like their style, they got a lot of albums. They probably sound the same in a good way.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things where we kind of listen to it and then you move on from it. But yeah, it was a great album. Then I listened to it again and I was like, oh my God, this is. I didn't expect it to be as good as it was, but immediately I was like, oh, that's good. And then it just keeps rolling out at you with riff after riff after riff. Yep. So that's a good one. I know you got one more for me. This was a new one for me when you sent me this one. I had not ever heard of this one.
So this is a new one for me too. And the reason why I bring these guys up, they're not as far back as some of the 1988 stuff, but this band did form in Yonkers, New York in 1992. So they still formed in 92. Their first record didn't really come out till 99. So it took them a while to get it out. But this band is Malignancy. And the reason why I bring these guys up, because they are this tech, brutal death metal, relentlessly fast. They're groove heavy and very technical. One of those bands where you just really have to kind of be into some of the grindcore and some of the wild stuff like Origin, Cryptopsy, Defeated Sanity to really enjoy this. But the reason why I was into this is because my son's friend Andre rode with me down to Kalamazoo, and he was showing me different bands that he liked, and he really was on, and he had some more he said he wanted to send me, but he never did. But he's like, you ever heard Malignancy? And then I was like looking into him, and he played it for me in the car. I was like, dude, this is fucking sweet. And then I seen how old it was, 1999, where it's quite old now, but still forming in 92. Like I said, it took him a while, but man, they just put on such a huge buzz when they came out in New York at this time because of how fast and brutally heavy they were with the grind elements. And you could feel another, almost like the Deeds of Flesh, where it's like, okay, this is kind of the Slam precursor, internal bleeding style of stuff. But the problem is, I think the reason why this there were some issues with this record, so they actually re-recorded it in 2019. To me, these guys were just like, holy shit, you're doing this in 1999 type thing, like how fast and brutal it was. I just couldn't believe there was guys that, the Suffocations were doing it, the Malevolent Creations, the Sinisters. There's a lot of guys doing stuff like this out there, but these guys just kind of took it to this next level. And then I remember listening to the newer album that they just put out not too long ago, just squelchy, fucking juicy artificial harmonics all over it, just tech blast death grind. And to me, this type of shit, you know me, this speaks to me more. The Deeds of Flesh,
Yeah.
the Suffocate, the brutal death metal shit. This is the stuff I was reaching for, and still continue to do. But this is the reason why I wanted to bring these guys up. I'm not an expert in any of these bands we talked about today.
Right.
Hopefully soon to be more versed in this and maybe bring up more talking points and diving into records more. But this is the reason why I put these guys on the list, because I had a whole bunch of other ones. Even started working on other bands like Entombed and Dismember and shit like that. But I just wanted to bring these guys up because I felt like maybe if you're into that tech brutal death metal shit, this would be a band that you probably should check out because they missed me for sure. So
I'd say with respect to Malignancy, the album came out in 99, but by virtue of the fact that they formed in 92, you can kind of like lump them in with the old school stuff because 92 is when a lot of that stuff, we were like right at the peak of that first wave, almost going into like the second wave with the mid to late 90s stuff. But Malignancy and Deeds of the Flesh, two of the heaviest bands we talked about today. The Malignancy, especially with their 1999 release, Intraterrene Cannibalism. Intraterrene. So I don't know what even that means. But this band sounds a lot like that early Cannibal Corpse or today's Defeated Sanity.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of grind, that constant low, almost inaudible guttural vocal, but it shreds heavy. And it is 26 years old, so it does kind of get lumped in with the old school death metal now. And I think that if you're looking for the heaviest thing on the list today, it might be Malignancy.
Yeah.
It might be. I mean, Suffocation's pretty goddamn heavy, but also like this is just another like style of heavy that's a little bit different from the Suffocation. I don't know. Maybe it's a little bit more than just that raw death metal trem picking and a lot more grind.
Yeah,
on
it's
it,
a little
maybe.
more grindy, a little more technical, I would say too. Where Suffocation's a little more on the brutal groove side. This is a little more like let's blast a little more.
Yeah.
Let's get a little more tech with it.
Yeah. Definitely one of the heaviest things that I listened to in the last couple of days as we were catching up for this episode. But I gotta say, like, if you like that Defeated Sanity, it's funny. I listened to that Defeated Sanity and I thought, sounds like old Cannibal Corpse. And then I listened to this Malignancy and I was like, sounds like Defeated Sanity. So it's like, it's funny, like this band's been around for a while doing it. And they definitely bring that old school death metal vibe, right to your face. It's a good album. Had not heard of this band. I don't even know that I've ever even heard of Malignancy. So it was a new discovery for me. I'm sure there's plenty of bands out there like this, and we'll dive into this. Yep. And at some point, I'm sure there'll be a cutoff where it's like I just can't listen to old school death metal anymore, or there's just not enough good albums to talk about. But we wanted to do this episode because we were there for it, and I realized looking back all the way, like our taste quickly went from like that old school death metal to that melodic heartwork style death metal, and that's kind of where we found our bread and butter and our favorite albums. But before those came to being, you had your Leprosy, or you had, even before the Bleeding, what did we have? Tombs?
Eaten Back to Life, Tomb of the Mutilated.
Yeah, so you had more brutal stuff.
And shit.
You had more brutal stuff out there that we kind of were like, we glossed over it a little bit. We're like, but the newer stuff's better. But now you can kind of go back in time and say, there's still like a ton of good old school death metal that we overlooked because our tastes were changing. So were the bands that we liked. They were changing. Music in general was changing. So we constantly evolved. And so we didn't get a chance to get in all the old school death metal when we were coming up because I think we needed to be 5 to 10 years older to really immerse ourselves in all of that. But being that we were teenagers and kind of like, okay, I'm 13, but I'm finding the stuff that came out when I was 10.
Yeah.
Or I'm 15 and I'm just now finding something out that's 5 years old now. That's a huge difference when you're a kid.
Yeah.
Like, when I'm an adult, I can listen to something in any decade and, like I can take it for what it means to me then. But when you're a kid, you don't have time to get all of that in.
Or access. I mean, because tapes cost money, CDs cost money. You had to find it, like we said. So, I mean, that's the overlying issue of this whole episode is access to this stuff. Now we can just dial in Malignancy and listen to all their notes.
Yep.
But
everything.
Before, we had nobody that was telling us about any of these bands or
and
pushing this on us to be like, hey, I know you like A, B, and C, but goddamn Suffocation's good. I don't see one tape of theirs in your collection. And like, why?
Well, also, too, like at 10 years old, you're listening to one thing. But then 5 years later, you're listening to something else.
Oh, completely.
And you got to go. You got to kind of go back in time to see what you missed. Like, I was listening to Skid Row when Malevolent Creation was the thing. I could, but you got your gateway bands we just talked about.
Yep.
You know, so like sometimes your starting point, you know, and to get where you're going. Sometimes you have to double back.
Yep.
Well, what did I miss?
Yep.
Well, and that's the entire point of today's episode is going over all these things that we missed. Plenty of great albums. I'm sure we're going to be bringing back this topic.
Yep, we'll be talking about more. And I have a whole list of old school death metal bands, but we're going to keep that for another time. I think these guys might even be here right now. So
cool.
Thanks for sticking with us. And hopefully we got our metal cards back today and realized all the stuff we missed. But we thoroughly enjoyed it. What a good conversation. And you'll probably see a part 2 from this. I can almost guarantee that. So with that being said, much love. Keep it metal. Peace. Thank you so much for checking out the episode. Be sure to hit that like button and give us a share.
Yeah, and if you enjoyed our podcast today, please give it a rating on your streaming service to help us gain some exposure.
And if you really enjoyed the show, please give us a follow or hit that subscribe button and come hang out with us every week. And remember, keep it metal.